let's unpack this. You hear about certain substances all the time, but there's often so much more going on beneath the surface, right?
Definitely.
So today, we're really diving into cocaine. This whole deep dive is about pulling out the essential nuggets from the sources we've looked at.
Getting to the core.
Exactly. What it is, how it hits the body and mind, and crucially, how you navigate the risks involved.
And just to be clear, we're focusing specifically on powdered cocaine here.
Right.
You know, the stuff people might call rack or yayo, nose candy, lots of names. It comes from the coca plant, mostly grown down in the Andes.
So this powder, it's described as white, crystalline, and it often gets cut with other things.
Yeah, that's a big factor. It's often mixed with, say, lactose, maybe glucose, sometimes talc, basically bulking agents. Dilutes the purity.
And how do people typically use it? Snorting seems common.
Snorting is very common, yeah. A typical dose might be around 30 to 70 milligrams, but people also inject it or use shelving.
Shelving, that's rectal administration.
Correct. And that route can actually lead to surprisingly fast absorption. The key thing, though, is that how you take it dramatically changes the effects, how strong they are, and how long they last.
Okay, let's talk about that timeline then. If someone snorts it, how does that play out?
Well, for snorted cocaine, the effects usually start to kick in within maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
Pretty quick.
Yeah. Then they peak around 20 to 40 minutes. The main sort of high lasts, give or take, 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half.
Okay.
And this is really fascinating and important. Even when that feeling wears off, the drug itself, it's still active in your system.
Still active. For how long?
For up to 4 to 6 hours. That's its half-life kicking in. So it hasn't actually left your body, which is, you know, a critical thing to understand if you're thinking about redosing or maybe mixing it with other substances.
Wow. Okay, so even after the main buzz fades, it's still working behind the scenes. That's a huge detail.
It really is.
So what kind of effects are we actually talking about physically and mentally while it's active?
It's a really broad spectrum. Physically, you might get that rush of energy, pupils get dilated, heart rate goes up.
The classic signs.
Right. But then there's the serious side.
Right.
Risk of seizures, stroke, even heart attacks. Emotionally, you can get intense euphoria, loads of confidence. But it can flip pretty quickly to irritability, aggression, paranoia even.
And psychologically.
Well, inhibitions might lower, focus might increase.
Right.
But again, there's a flip side. Risk of psychosis, or something called excited delirium.
Excited delirium. That sounds serious.
It is. It's a dangerous state. Agitation, confusion, aggression, really unpredictable.
Okay. And if we zoom out, thinking about long-term use or heavy use.
Yeah, connecting to the bigger picture, chronic use can definitely lead to ongoing anxiety, paranoia, insomnia is common, and physical damage too, like to the nasal cartilage if you're snorting regularly. But here's something else the source has highlighted, which is quite unsettling. It's about levamisole.
The cutting agent you mentioned.
Exactly. It's commonly used, but it's not just inert filler. Levamisole can cause severe immune system problems. So you're not just dealing with cocaine, you might be unknowingly tanking your body's defenses.
That's, a stark reminder of the hidden risks in an unregulated market.
Absolutely.
So given all this, the power of the substance, the hidden dangers, let's pivot to harm reduction.
What are the key strategies?
Right, the practical side. General advice is pretty consistent. Try to use in a comfortable place with people you trust.
Set and setting.
Precisely. Also, having some food about 30 minutes before might help. And always start with a tiny amount, a test dose, to see how strong it is and how sensitive you are.
And set limits, I imagine.
Crucial. Decide beforehand how much you'll use and when you'll stop. Physically, keep an eye on overheating and your heart rate. If you feel hot or your heart's racing, cool down. And hydrate.
How much hydration?
Good rule of thumb is about a cup of water per hour if you're resting, maybe 500 milliliters if you're active, like dancing.
Okay. And specific tips for snorting? Yeah, a few important ones. Crush the powder as finely as possible, helps absorption, less nasal damage. Rinsing your nose with water before and after can help too.
Man.
Always use your own clean straw or spum. Never share, and definitely don't use rolled up banknotes. They're dirty and can spread infections like Hep C or even HIV if there's any blood.
Right. Basic hygiene, but critical. Okay, what about mixing cocaine with other drugs? This sounds like where things get really dicey.
Extremely dicey. This interaction piece is so important. Some combinations are just flat out dangerous.
Like what?
Cocaine plus opioids or GHB or other depressants. Big risk of heart strain. Or your breathing could just stop.
Yeah.
Respiratory arrest.
Okay.
Mixing it with MAOIs, certain old-school antidepressants can cause a massive spike in blood pressure, potentially leading to a stroke. Very dangerous.
Wow.
And combining it with other stimulants like MDMA or speed, that puts immense strain on the heart, ups the risk of psychosis too.
So those are the really dangerous ones. Are there others that are maybe less immediately lethal but still require serious caution?
Yes. Alcohol is a big one. When you mix cocaine and alcohol, your body creates a new substance called coca-ethylene.
Coca-ethylene.
Yeah, and it's actually more toxic to your heart and liver than either drug on its own. Plus, it can increase the risk of dependency.
So it makes both drugs worse, essentially.
In a way, yes. Also, mixing with psychedelics needs caution. Cocaine can ramp up anxiety, potentially making a psychedelic experience much more negative or difficult.
Good to know. Okay, final area. Drug testing. What's the situation, say, in Australia with roadside tests?
Right, so roadside saliva tests in Australia can pick up cocaine for, interestingly, 24 to 72 hours since you last slept.
Since you slept, not just since you used.
Correct. Sleep seems to be key for clearing it from saliva. So the advice is clear. Wait at least 24 hours after sleeping before driving.
Got it. And workplace testing? Or other kinds?
Workplace policies differ, of course, but generally cocaine can show up in urine for 3 days or more, in hair for up to 90 days, and in blood for about 1 to 3 days.
Long windows for some of those.
Definitely. It's also worth mentioning that drug checking services are out there in some places. They can test your substance so you know what's actually in it, which, given the cutting agents we discussed, is valuable info.
Absolutely. This whole deep dive really underscores the value of getting clear, evidence-based information, doesn't it?
It really does. Like the sources kept saying, knowledge is power.
It truly is. And maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. Considering the reality of an unregulated market, where you often don't know the purity or even the exact substance,
Yeah.
really understanding that interplay between your set, your own mindset, your physical state, the setting, where you are, who you're with, and the drug itself, that understanding is probably the most powerful tool you have for making safer, more informed choices.
Well said. That's the best harm reduction tool,
Yeah.
ultimately. Understanding that triangle. Set, setting, and the drug.